Hello and welcome back to another one of Paul's beer reviews. I hope you're all doing well. I have got a Hazy IPA to review for you, and it's from I was about to say it's from a brewery in Washington DC, in the United States of America, of course. They're called DC BRAU, and this is their Joint Resolution Hazy IPA, coming in at 5.5% ABV. What's to say about this beer? Brewed and canned in Washington, D.C. by DC BRAU Brewing, 5.5%. These are an independent brewery, and they've got the Independent Craft Brewing Associators certified mark on the can. Brewed in D.C. The flavour text is really lazy. It simply says, Joint Resolution, Hazy and Juicy, and 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 Hazy and Juicy. Just like our government. Hazy and Juicy, like a government. I'm not really sure what that means, but that's what they've gone with. Joint Resolution, Hazy IPA, contains barley, wheat, oats, hops, and yeast. There you go. Imported by Heathwick Limited, who are a London-based company, for DC BRAU Brewing Company. Lovely jubby. I picked this one up from Werewolf Brewing in Camden Town. I attended their 4th of July celebrations, 3-day beer festival, a couple of weeks back now. Great time. Really had a good time. Spent a lot of time with the guys from Mad Yank and Rich from Werewolf Brewing. So shout out to them. All the beers on tap were brewed by breweries that are owned by former American citizens and now living over here. It was a really good thing. We were eating hot dogs and donuts and just drinking some really good American beer. And I took a few takeaways, and this was a beer I hadn't had anything from this brewery before, DC BRAU. I thought a nice hazy IPA. I quite fancied it, so we're going to do a review. So it's the first thing I've had from DC BRAU. So let's get this out of the can into a glass. Let's see if it's any good, shall we? So yeah, shout out to Werewolf Brewing for hosting the thing. It was a really good event, went really well. They're a really, really small brewery, kind of off the beaten track in Camden Town. You go down the Camden Road, not the high road, and it's they're just based in a little archway under the railway, under the Camden rail station. But yeah, really carbonated, massive head on it. It's certainly hazy looking, hazy orange colour to it. To be fair, that was a bit of a knobhead pour, but there you go. But certainly hazy orange in colour, massive 3 and a bit finger of a spacious, fluffy white head, which is just starting to die down a little bit. But I can't wait around all night for that. But thanks to my awful pour. So yeah, hazy orange in colour. Looks like a sort of a tropical fruit colour rather than an orange in general colour. Let's get me snouting, see what the aroma's telling us. Not a great deal. It's orangey. I can get that. Orangey and slightly tropical. Quite peachy, but certainly juicy. It's a subtle aroma. I'm not. It might just be the fact it's struggling to get through that massive head, but yeah, it's a quite tropical aroma. It's in a 355 ml can, standard American size. See if I can get the rest of that in there. Okay, and there was a little bit of yeast. A couple of little floaters that went in there with that, which I don't mind at all. Mix that up a little bit. See if that changes anything. But yes, what's this called? Joint Resolution. Joint Resolution from DC BRAU. Let's get stuck in, shall we? Quite bitter. There's a piney bitterness to it that lingers. Considering there's oats in this, it's really rather thin. That is very thin. It's almost watery. It's very juicy. A touch of dankness to it. Overly ripe fruit. It needs a bit more body because it goes from quite sweet, juicy, hoppy flavours into this full-on sort of piney, bitter, lingering finish. For me, there's a slightly, they clash. They don't clash very well, these elements. It doesn't blend very well. It's not a balanced drinking experience. The two elements to it, that tropical, juicy touch and that piney bitterness at the back end, don't blend well together. Excuse me, it's actually slightly unpleasant, this beer, unfortunately. But there you go. Yeah, it's quite herbal. I think that's that combination of the hops. Like I say, it doesn't say what hops were used. But the clash is really quick. The more you drink it, that herbal, sort of almost peppery clash of the sort of the tropical juicy notes, and then that sort of piney bitterness. They kind of clash, and it ends up with sort of a bit of a herbal drying mess. And I'm not like in a hurry to get the next mouthful, you know. Yeah, it's a bit disappointing. That's a bit disappointing. I do like my American beers. I've had some absolute belters, but this is not one of them, I'm unfortunately to say. Can't get my words out. Unfortunately to say, it doesn't even make sense. I've had a few. Yeah, it's just a bit underwhelming. That it is juicy, it is hazy, but I say that drying bitterness does nothing for it, and it needs a bit more body. I think it had a bit more body. I think that weird kind of herbal clash of the two elements of this beer wouldn't have been as pronounced. It's too thin and it's not balanced enough for me. Nah, it's not an easy drinker. It's not an easy drinker, that one, for me, unfortunately. So I'm going to wrap up the review there. DC BRAU with their joint resolution Hazy IPA, 5.5%. I'm going to give that a 5 out of 10. In fact, no, I'm not. I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10. It wasn't even that good. 4 out of 10 for me. Yeah, any Americans who are big fans of DC BRAU, I apologise. It just wasn't for me. But there you go. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Give it a thumbs up if you have. Until the next one, you take care.